Well, Corey, I wish you would hold off on that. I don't want you to say anything else. We're about to start the podcast, and I think that if you said that in front of our audience, you'd make them really, really upset, and they love you to death. I get mail saying that I shouldn't say the kind of things that I say to you, and I should be nicer to you, but we definitely don't want to let that get out on the airwaves and let our audience know that you think that way.
They don't,
welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth.
They don't know that I'm actually the wild and crazy one, and
That's right.
It's true. Well,
you broke up a little bit there, so just for audience, I want to let you know that Corey was saying that he does a whole coffee cup of cocaine right before each of these and most client meetings. Other than that, let's get to it. Welcome to Your Business, Your Wealth. My name is Paul Adams. I am joined by the amazingly deeply dark man who we give this glowing light to on this podcast, Corey Shepard, who is president of Sound Financial Group, very good friend of mine, an entertaining man, and somebody who has some wonderful insights for you today. Corey, do you want to introduce our first article today?
So you sent me this video. Actually, a friend of ours sent you this video. I had no idea what it was, and I'm not on TikTok. Every time I see a TikTok from Paul, I'm like, what am I gonna be watching now?
And I don't go on TikTok. People just send these to me, Corey. Just for the record, I want you to know there's nothing I've ever sent you that's a TikTok video that I found on my own.
Right. That's like saying there's not a single, let's use your cocaine theme, which is our theme for some reason today. There's not a single hit of cocaine that I've given you that I've made myself. I've just got it from other people.
Thank you. I think that's a perfect metaphor.
And this video was a lot of fun. Are we going to play it?
Yeah, let's have the team just drop a clip of this video, and this is what was texted me. This is a realtor down in Nevada, and he has some unique thinking about Zillow. Now, what I want you to do, though, is listen to it. Don't form your opinion yet. Here we go. I mean,
real estate company not to be named. He never says the Z word, and we don't know who he's talking about.
We can't possibly guess. But let's give them that clip, and then we'll come right back.
Yep.
I've been a real estate agent for about 11 years now. And let's talk about the housing crisis. And let's talk about some what ifs. What if there was a company that everybody knew of to look for houses? And everybody goes on there and searches for houses when they're bored and stuff. And so that company, they just sit back and they just collect all the data. They just know what zip code is looking at what zip code and how much those people can afford. Everyone's looking at this one zip code and everybody seems to be able to afford this certain amount. And let's say that $1 billion company uses that information to go into that zip code and start purchasing houses. Because the people that are selling their houses, even though they sell it for a little bit less sometimes than what the home could actually be worth, and they pay these high fees to this $1 billion company, it's a convenience factor. So this company's scooping up houses less than what they actually could cost. And let's say that company, that company buys 30 homes within a 2-mile radius. And let's say the price is $300,000. So they buy all of these homes for $300,000. And then on the 31st home, they buy it for $340,000. Even though they know all of the comps. Because most people have to get a loan. And if you get a loan, you have to get an appraisal, which means the appraiser is going to look at what homes have sold in the area for that size and that price per square foot. So they're paying cash. They don't need an appraisal. Why would they pay $340,000 for this 31st home whenever they've only paid $300,000 for these others? Well, what that just did is create a new comp. So when they go to sell these other 30 homes, that extra $40,000 that you could say this one sold for $340,000 just made them $1.2 million off that one neighborhood, because they know from their research how much people can afford in that zip code. Weird. And let's say that then they're going to come in. They bought that home at $340,000 that still needs work. So they're going to come in and do the good old paint, spackle, and change the carpet and call it a remodel. So now we can sell them for $360,000. Because we know off of our data, that's how much people can afford. Wouldn't that be weird if a company did that? And then say that this company also starts letting you use their own lenders and their own title and escrow company, and makes you write your contract on their contract, not the one that your state uses. Wouldn't that be a weird world to live in? My goodness, I can't imagine us living in that world. Can you?
So here's what I love about how he starts, just the nitty gritty of influence. He gives his authority, real estate agent for 10 years. He positions himself to know something about something. And then the narrative and the way he delivers it is really compelling, because we want, in our point in culture right now, we want to believe that these giant data-driven tech companies are out to get us. Mm-hmm. And they might be.
Yeah, it's true.
Right? They might be. And so, but he delivers it in such a really compelling way. And I thought, like, it is a clever strategy. If you could control a lot of the data about a market, buy a bunch of houses right at market, and the last one ping up an extra comp, like, yes, it's not a great business model to spend over market on a house, but if you're doing that on one house and that lets you sell 20 other ones for 20% more, then yeah, you could probably get that done. So
yep. Well, and this is the thing. Let me just I'm going to go over to our article here, which I think I'm successfully doing. Yes. So this is an article from Redfin on this TikTok video, and it really went viral significantly after somebody else had shared it. But as you can see here, they talk about the fact that he makes a judgment that, although he doesn't say their name, and probably from a liability perspective, best thing he could have done is not put his name on it.
Right.
But he says, like, what if they bought all these homes? And what if they bought 30 homes and the 31st home was increased by $40,000? Now you have 30 homes that increased by $40,000 in value, and you go through and sell all of them. I think it's highly likely this is actually what Zillow had in mind. They had the most data, terabytes of data they're going through every day. They know where people are looking for homes. So they know that I have somebody on my street who's looking for homes in a different state. And they know how many people are doing that across the country, because it also happens to be the most popular website out there. And that they could buy homes and could manipulate the pricing is a possibility. Yeah. Now, for those of you that saw this video, I want to play one other short video for you that I think will help make sense of this and make sense of the other article that we go through here in a second.
I love my country, but this is what's wrong with America. This is why I tell y'all all the time, think for yourself, critical thinking. Don't believe everything the media tells you. If the media gives you information with the intent to produce an emotional response, something's not factual.
All right, so I just love what she said. That came up in my YouTube shorts, kind of random. But it's just this woman saying, now I'm sure her orientation was to the political. But just think about it financially. In the beginning of that TikTok video, figure out very, very quickly he wants you to feel a certain way. And now what we have to do is go, okay, now I've got this feeling. Is it grounded? Well, if I go in and read this article, and I can read an additional article, because those of you that track financial markets, you're listening to this show, you probably read this stuff. Zillow lost their ever-loving tail on these buying of homes. They took a write-down, which is good for them because they do end up getting a write-off against it. But the real estate company took a $304 million inventory write-down in the third quarter. And it's because it bought all these homes. Now, it could be a strategy that's going to do a write-down. It's still going to sell these homes profitably, but they're openly saying they're going to lay off 2,000 people because this has been a failed project for them. Now, both of these media sources can be right. Our very charming TikTok star, and our CNN business article can both be accurate. Like, he could be right that Zillow tried to do it, and Zillow got hammered over it. And the CNN could be right that they just lost their tail and are winding down this business. But here's the big deal that at least I feel the need to talk about slightly, is that how many for sure things do we hear about? So I've been doing this 25 years. How many years have you been at this, Corey?
15.
Yeah. So in that time, it is a consistent thing that Corey and I would hear from people is, well, I've got a strategy or I've got a system. All I need to do is, and it's some version of step 1, I invest in X. Step 2, question mark. Step 3, profit. For those of you that are South Park fans, so much profit. And the problem is that step 2, because almost guaranteed, despite the Zillow guy having this thought of what Zillow is doing to real estate in his area, well, is he finding out where Zillow is buying them and then buying ahead of them or doing anything like that? No, his job is to be a TikTok influencer, and a real estate agent. His job isn't to be a hedge fund manager that competes with Zillow on real estate.
I mean, he's probably, and his job isn't a bit to be cranky about Zillow because he's a real estate agent. And so I get that. I get cranky about big box financial retail sometimes. Here's what I realized. I immediately looked up this video online to find articles about it. And I found a Market Watch article, and this professor at the University of Pennsylvania's Wharton School, a real estate professor, said, if you could rig the residential housing market that easily, the realtors would have done it long ago. Now, here's what I thought. Maybe 30 years ago, 40 years ago, when realtors were really the only ones who had this data on what the market could look like, that would have been an easier time to do it because they could have bought a bunch of homes, had one that they bought for a lot more, and then done that because they had all the comps. Now, you could make the other side of the argument that, well, there's, Zillow has way more access to data than any group of realtors ever did, but also everyone else in the market does. So yes, there's one more comp, but it's not that hard for any real estate agent or any individual consumer to find all those 30 other homes that bought for way less and see that it's just one comp. Like appraisers aren't stupid people. They look for more than one comp. So there's yes, his plan could work, but there's also, it's maybe a little sensationalized too.
Yeah. And the crazy thing is, it could have worked. And in fact, if we get into one of these articles, which we're a little bit out of time on this segment, but if you read in one of the articles, which, by the way, I want to let everybody know we're making a slight change. Instead of having all of these resources just posted right to our page here, just go to yourbusinessyourwealth.com. That takes you to our main website, but it'll take you to the most recent episode page. And if you're looking for resources from a past episode, you can always search for it. But they bought 27,000 homes. They successfully sold 17,000. Now, if you do the quick math of if they managed to figure out how to make $10,000 per property on those properties, that's $17 million. That's not a joke in terms of total profitability, but it does look like the water is going out and perhaps we're finding out who is swimming without a bathing suit on. And anytime we have a system and we think we can outpace the market or we think we have the way that is going to consistently or predictably get north of 15% rate of return every single year, even a company with unbelievable amounts of personnel and computer processing power couldn't do it. We probably can't either.
Can I bring this around to the financial markets?
Yeah.
Well, so here's what I'm thinking. So maybe it worked for a while, and there's lots of anything that's a clever trick in the financial market, some thing to exploit. Maybe it works for a little while, but by the time you read about it on Market Watch, that advantage may have already been eroded. So that's the danger, is that it's very hard to rig a market for forever, but if you're doing all these short-term strategies, running to the next big thing, you can keep getting caught in those temporary riptides over and over and over again. Indeed.
And so for all of you, I would love to hear in the comments below, what do you think? Think Zillow successfully manipulated it? Do you think that maybe this is just an easy path to fame to a real estate agent in Nevada? So in any case, in either way, we'd love to know what you guys think. Let's hit our next article, which I think
Speaking
Corey,
of short-term tricks.
oh yeah, a cryptocurrency inspired by Squid Game crashes. Now, Corey, I am the firm's known for being super up on the political, but not so good on the pop culture. So I think you need to lead this one off.
Well, I think most people listening have at least heard of Squid Game at this point. The most popular title Netflix has.
Oh yeah, and it was great. It was a great way for me to spend part of my COVID laying in bed.
Right. Now, someone created a Squid token, a cryptocurrency token called Squid. And long story short, it rocketed up and then rocketed down, and a bunch of people lost some money and were kind of pissed off about it.
Are you saying, wait, let me just see if I got this right. Are you saying that a financial instrument, money, we'll call it money for now, money in this case, was created based on a game that they made up, that then they made a movie about, and that was worth a lot for a minute, and now it's worth nothing, basically. Did I get that right? Well,
yeah, and to say that it was based on anything is really loose, because there was no inherent intellectual property other than a name that linked these two.
Well, and I think it's like Monopoly money. Like this is
like
a perfect
Beanie
example.
Babies.
This
it's
is
like Beanie Babies as well.
That's right. Last week I could buy a Ford F-150 with the Squizzaju or whatever you call what the different Beanie Baby names are. And next week I can't fill the tank with it.
Yeah. Now, here is something that I think a lot of people don't know about that's possible in cryptocurrencies, that there were some special features built into this one that are called anti-dump features. They're meant to bring stability, is what they say, but I think they were intentionally used to create a lot of money for the people who created this. So the first is that the developers required that buyers outnumber sellers 2-1 to allow a sale. So the second that any majority of people wanted to get out, they no longer could. Like, it's crazy.
Which then made it worthless faster. The very thing
made it worthless faster. Yeah.
Because if you have more people want to get out of it, you literally couldn't spend it, because that is the sale of a coin. Right. Is its transmission to somebody else for said services or product or cash.
Right. And the craziest, I think the even crazier part is they also required users to buy tokens of a second currency called marbles to sell their Squid tokens. Like, really weird. And you had to play. Now, this is where it was connected. Sorry, I'm correcting myself. You had to play an online game inspired by the show to get the tokens as a voucher to go sell your other Squid tokens.
So is this, and I just need to do this one for the comments section. Yeah. You guys can improve on it. Are you saying that people who bought Squid for fortune ended up not only losing Squid, but they also lost their marbles?
They lost their marbles. Yep. Yep.
Because that was the other crypto they were trying to push to this crew.
Yeah. So, again, we've said before, if you're interested in cryptocurrency, do some research. A small portion of your portfolio could be appropriate. But if you don't know how to go buy it all on your own using these super easy platforms, is probably not a good move, because there's these things built in that I actually didn't know that was. I've owned cryptocurrency for a while. I've studied a lot. I didn't know they could pull these little tricks like they did. I just didn't know about it.
Well, and for me, I just the other day, I've shared, I think, on the show before that I have some miners that I've been running for years, and they just kind of work in the garage and spend my electricity bill. But it's turned out to be wildly profitable. And my commitment to it was I was never going to speculate or trade in it. I was going to create value that created value for the network and cryptocurrency, and that's the only way I was going to participate. But I got to tell you, just going through, and I know this stuff well. I own 6 figures of cryptocurrency. I couldn't. It took me 2 days of poking at the platform to get to where I could exchange it to cash. Now, it was a weird thing in the platform and how I titled the accounts that ended up giving me the fits, but it's not as easy as we'd sometimes like it to be, and it's certainly not as easy as buy the new cool coin, and it's going to work out well for you. In fact, it's all evidence points toward it probably won't work out well for you. But I do want to know if you guys bought some Squid Coin or put below any crazy ass cryptocurrency you bought. By the way, Corey, I'm going to get myself a bleep button because I think I love to curse. I just think it does something for a sentence that a comma and a period, an exclamation point just can't quite do the same. But I don't want to be openly cursing on our podcast. So I'm going to get myself a beep button and I'm going to start beeping myself out. All right. Let's get to our last article. Corey, I think our last article was we were going to talk about this sustainable investing.
Why you should ditch 401k plans to a Roth. Sorry, why you should ditch plans to convert your 401k to a Roth IRA.
Got it. This is Apple Barron's article.
Yeah.
Oh, come on. There we go. Whew. I thought we were going to get stuck behind the paywall since I had to reopen the article. We're okay.
So what's funny about this one is how it starts is it pits it as there's one answer as far as which is better.
And pause right there. Let's think about the woman who gave us the advice earlier in that short little clip about when the media makes an announcement in an article about how they want, I get a little angry about this, but they want you to feel a certain way when you start reading this article. Clearly. And as you can see by Paul's demeanor, it's working, right? He's getting mad. And in this case, I'm getting mad at a place who's supposed to bring me news, bringing me a word salad, which we're going to get into here in a minute. There is zero data, zero anything helpful, nothing you should base a financial decision on. Not that you should have the TikTok person, but you'll see that you get an article that gives you a feeling, that gives you a way of thinking, helps you make an assessment about a particular financial tool. And let's see if we can count up all of the data in this article. Now, the thing that's most interesting about this is this guy, Ted Benna. Now, they say in the article, I've never heard of him before, the man often credited with inventing the 401k plan. Now, Corey, I don't know if you know this, but I am often credited with the idea of creating a financial podcast ever. I'm often credited with that. Can you imagine more wormy language? Just he's often credited with what hand did he have in it? That's just me.
I do remember, we've done some research in a 401k. You have heard of him. We've looked him up before. And actually, I think we've talked about him on our podcast a few years ago. There was an article about inventors of the 401k say it's not working out as well as they had thought. I think that's the same guy.
I don't know. I'm going to look. He did write 401k for Dummies. So he's got that going for him. And then he has a 401k company. Oh, I'm going to look at his LinkedIn. If he invented a 401k, he should be pretty old. He doesn't even have a profile picture on his LinkedIn. So first and foremost,
he is pretty old.
I want to say something here to Brent Arends. Brent, I have a LinkedIn picture. Interview me in your article. I promise I'll say something interesting. Okay. But here's the point I'm trying to make. The entire remainder of the article rests on this weak appeal to authority. Because he's a guy who created the 401k. And at the risk of inciting another flame war, Bennett thinks Roths are nowhere near as good as they're made out to be. He believes traditional IRAs are likely to prove much better for most people. Okay, so that's partly because most of us are likely to face lower taxes or retirement than we do while we're working. So a tax break will be worth less than one today. So pause here for a second. Now, I'm going to pick on the writer of this article. I don't know who he is, but I'm going to make up who he is.
Don't pick too hard because you want him to interview you.
Well, no, I'm going to use him as an example, not pick on him. Thank you, Corey. Okay. So let's say he's 30, 35 right now. And he's saying, I want to put money in my 401k because he thinks, having interviewed Benna, that he will be in a lower tax bracket in his old age. And I think that could be true if what he did was retire on 70% of what he was making when he was 35. But if you talk to any 35-year-old and say, what were you making 10 years ago? And they'll be like, oh man, some fraction of what I'm making now. Okay. So you're making not much. Now you're making a lot more. What would you have thought 10 years ago if you're making what you make today? And I'll give you my answer. I was like, I thought I'd be retired in like 3 years, just save so much money, but lifestyle catches up and you still save a decent amount of money, but you're not saving all of it. But now you're 35, you have income increases for 30 years. And then you retire on 70% of that number. That is a lot more income than what you're making when you were 35. Oh, by the way, when you were 35, you had a home mortgage deduction that now is hopefully paid off. You had 2 or 3 kids running around at home. Those are gone as tax deductions anyway. So
never mind.
You're not putting money in the 401k anymore. You're not even getting that right off.
Well, and if they mentioned in this article that you don't want to use a Roth because the government might change the rules on you and end up taxing it later. And they use Social Security as a example because Social Security used to be tax-free. And then they added this provisional income test that taxes up to 85% of Social Security, which, if you add Social Security and that taxability, and if you have $1.2 million in an IRA at age 72, you have to take about $46,000 a year in RMDs. The IRS's factor is about 25 years of life expectancy at 72. So take whatever 401k balance you think you're going to have, divide by 25, that's the amount you have to take out that year. So between about 46,000 of RMD and Social Security, you're going to be in about the same tax bracket that you were the year, 5 years earlier at 65 in your last year working. So, well,
not to mention that they leave completely out of this article any benefit to the simple ability to choose where you take taxable income from. You see, when you follow the 401k guy who says just max out the traditional 401k and get your write-off because it's the best deduction, which, by the way, this idea of it could get taxed in the future would be the reason to not do anything. Well, I probably shouldn't buy any lumber because they could tax that more later. I probably shouldn't invest in real estate because they could change the capital gains rate. I probably shouldn't put any money in my 401k because they still have, as we've talked about in the show in the past, the excise tax on the books from the 90s when they charged a success tax for the one time in our history where taxes were actually lower than when people were putting money in the plans. They added a success tax to make sure you couldn't benefit from the lower amount of tax rates versus when you put it in. So, we could throw that on anything. We could use appeal to authority on anything. And yet when it comes down to it, it's like we just want to make sure that our clients have money in different pockets. So if we have some non-qualified money, then we get the option to take some taxable interest and withdrawals from basis. We can have things that are tax-free or can be used tax-free like Roth IRAs and whole life insurance. And then we have our pre-tax money. And then you have tax-deferred things or real tax advantage things like rental properties, et cetera. But what it all comes down to is when we start taking distributions, no one of them is the exact right thing to do, because we want to be able to have a different tax status of accounts when we take those withdrawals. Because if we take those withdrawals from their best taxed source for our current year in income, then we can add way more efficiency over time. And all of that is left out of this article, because the article's purpose was told to us at the very beginning was that you should not convert your 401k to a Roth, and gives no space for it and no math, opinions, assessments, and a desire to make you feel a certain way. So I love seeing your comments. Throw down in there like, hey, do you like Roth? Do you like 401k? Do you think they'll tax Roth in the future? And if so, does that make it a reason not to do it? So with that, Corey, anything you want to send everybody off with today?
This is great. Just keep reading. Send us, if you find an article that you'd like to see us talk about, email it to info@ssgway.com. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
We love that. Yeah, we love getting stuff from our clients. We get texts, we get emails. That often populates this agenda today. So please send that stuff along. And always don't forget, if you can give us an honest review on our podcast, then send us a note on LinkedIn or via that same email Corey just gave you, or just our contact form on our website. We'll send you a copy of one of our most recent books as a thank you for giving an honest review. And with that, we hope that this episode, like all our episodes, has been a contribution to you being able to design and build a good life.